Friday Eye, a deep dive into the transformative world of artificial intelligence. This week we're navigating the intersection of AI and real estate, a domain ripe for innovation and efficiency. We're thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Ara Mamourian, a distinguished broker at the Spring Team Real Estate and a renowned high-performance coach to top realtors. Ara's deep dive into the real estate industry, combined with his innovative use of technology, has positioned him as a leading figure in harnessing AI's potential to revolutionize how real estate operates. In this episode, Navigating the AI Revolution in Real Estate, Ara will share his expert insights on the transformative power of AI in the real estate industry, practical tips on integrating AI tools into daily real estate practices to enhance operations and client engagement. Whether you're a seasoned realtor or just curious about the intersection of AI and real estate, this episode promises to offer valuable perspectives on leveraging technology for success. So tune in and let's explore together how artificial intelligence is reshaping the landscape of real estate, providing tools and insights that were once unimaginable. Get ready to be part of this exciting revolution.
Awesome. Thank you, ChatGPT, for that amazing intro. And Ara, thank you for joining us. I'm glad that we're not the only ones who struggle with your name. Not just my stepmother, but even AI goes from Ara to Ari to...
You know what? I'm used to it. I'm 45 years old now. It's happened in many different ways over the years. It's all good.
Yeah. But the good news is you're such a presence that people don't care what your name is because you've done some really impressive things. And, ChatGPT gave us a bit of background, but I've known you for a number of years, and I know that there's some really incredible things that you've been doing. You're working in a cloud-based brokerage, which is very unique. And maybe you can tell people, for maybe those who aren't familiar with it, what a cloud-based brokerage is, what the difference is between a cloud brokerage versus, a brick and mortar brokerage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, real estate's a pretty, much like accounting, not much innovation in the, in the way people operate in that world. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It just is what it is. People get used to the way of doing things, and it's, it just kind of rolls forward that way. But over the past few years, the emergence of these, non-brick and mortar type operations that are, quote unquote, based in the cloud, meaning there's no real office to walk into unless some of the teams or agents that are part of those brokerages decide to open their own team offices, which is what we've done in a way. But it just allows the company to reallocate funds into what I believe is more important. Technology, supporting agents versus spending thousands of dollars a month on various leases that really only benefit a handful of people. So, at so our brokerage is called Real Broker. It's a US company that came into the States about 2 years ago. It's when we jumped on board. And some of the tools that they're able to deliver to us, like internal AI systems that help us and our agents understand, certain processes and things that are happening. It's like, oh, you haven't been paid on a deal you did? We'll just ask our, AI within the app, and it'll tell you, rather than trying to search for the transaction and type in check the checklist, you just ask it. It's called Leo. You're like, hey, Leo, when am I getting paid on this deal? And it'll say, oh, well, you're missing this document or that document. So it just, not to go on about it, but like having a brokerage that doesn't have this massive overhead with all of these leases and franchisees with leases and all these kind of things. It's a corporately owned entity that diverts all of their funds into just creating technology to help the agents out, which is why, we connected to it. And I brought the Spring Team over there April of 2022. And we've kind of evolved with our own tech alongside the brokerage as well.
And that's the thing, is I think in this day and age, you have to be putting your focus, whether it's time or money or both, into technology because of the way that technology is evolving so quickly and the way it's helping businesses in ways that we never even could have even dreamt of years ago. And it is really incredible. And also, to top it off, we know that people don't want to be coming into traditional offices. And I know that you still have that virtual co-working space to get together, and you have your in-person meetings. And so that when you have that time together, it's treasured and it means more. And we're the same way. We're, a cloud-based accounting firm. So I certainly understand the concept. And, I agree with you that that is the future of many, many different industries and professions across the world, is to go this sort of cloud-based model. And I think it just is a sign that you are in touch with the times and in touch with the technology. And obviously, that's what we're excited to talk to you guys about today, because in our chats, it's been really interesting to hear how you've been able to leverage artificial intelligence for your business. And I'm really excited for you to maybe share with some of our listeners some of the things that you've been able to do. Like, I know you have one example where you were able to take a process, leverage AI to take a process that took an entire day and whittle it down to 10 minutes. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about how you're actually using AI and automation in your business today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I'll do a better job of describing, as I did to you earlier in the call, like, because there's just so many bits and pieces, and some of it's AI, some of it's not. So, and that's the thing, right? A lot of AI you've probably already been using and you have no idea. Like,
Hmm.
like those, like Grammarly, or all these, like, tools that help you write better, that are integrated with
Yep.
Chrome. Like half the Chrome extensions most people use already a lot, involve a lot of AI. So most people are daily users of AI, they don't even know it.
Yep.
But in general, you can really take it to the highest level, like you and I talked about before, and we can talk about it from like the back end administration side of things, and then we can talk about it from like the client facing and marketing and sales side of things as well. And one way it's really saved us a lot of time, money, and a tremendous amount of effort, like you said, taking a day's worth of work, whittled it down to about, I would say 60 seconds, sometimes longer if the process takes longer to run. But, long story short, there are amazing tools that allow various programs that don't already talk to each other to talk to each other. You might,
Hmm.
Zapier, that's one. Um,
Zapier, because Zapier makes you happier. It's not Zapier.
Oh, okay. Well, some people think it's French and it's Zapier, and
Yeah.
that's not.
There's
But
lots of debate. I just like to go with Zapier because I love that Zapier makes you happier.
well, it's kind of like the GIF argument, right? But I think it's
Yeah,
settled now
exactly.
that it's GIF. I think. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
a whole other conversation. Like I still think it should be GIF. But anyway,
But is it tomato
um,
or tomato?
I don't know. But so with this, I don't even know what I was talking about now. But this,
You were talking
so
about
so the tool that I
Zapier.
was talking about was, one thing that everybody can jump into and use right away is obviously ChatGPT, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
easiest thing you can jump into. You don't even have to pay for ChatGPT 4 if you don't want to, but I highly recommend that you do, to access various features and plugins, etc. But that's another conversation. What we love to do is help things talk to each other that don't naturally talk to each other. So we use a
Hmm.
service called make.com, and that's formerly known as Integromat. And it just allowed programs to communicate with each other. So with our onboarding process, for example, just to show you what's possible at a really high level, let's say you, Andrew, decide that you're going to be an agent on the spring team. You want to come join us, you want to come sell with us, whatever. But with that requires various onboarding. You got to create email addresses, create bios. You have to, create the Google Drive account for that person, their sales folder, get them their goal setting worksheet all set up, get the contract out to get signed, have them sign into our register for our CRM, our Discord, which is what our team communication. Instead of, we don't use Slack, we use Discord. So anyway, long story short, there's like about 50 to 55 processes involved there to get somebody fully onboarded. So we looked at that entire thing and asked make.com, okay, can you make these programs talk to each other? And all of our systems originate from forms, whether it's
Hmm.
a Google form. We use Airtable. Airtable has amazing capabilities with automation and AI integration. So Airtable is kind of like a Asana, but way better for
Yeah.
task management, project management, stuff like that. So if you fill out the onboarding form, your name, your info, whatever, and once that form is, and you've got your picture in there too, because you have some various photos of yourself, hopefully. If not, then we can arrange that. But so once that form is submitted, so now it goes through our entire onboarding process. It creates their email address for our company email address. It sends their personal email address, login information to that company email now. And then they'll see immediately a bunch of emails in there that are auto populated with, like, various scripts and copy and whatever, and instructions on how to set up their CRM and how to do this and that. So at the end of 60 seconds, they are basically fully onboarded, and they just have to watch a video that the AI kind of populates and transcribes for them, so they can also read it. So they have everything done, and they just need to go through a checklist. So all of this stuff was done by our administrator before. And that was
Right.
literally a full day's worth of work on top of all the other stuff she had to do. She'd sit there with the person, kind of go it all, introduce her to this system or that system. But now with make.com, with the ChatGPT integration in there and all the other things that you can do, like it's absolutely phenomenal how that's worked for us.
Pretty cool. Now I have a question for you as someone who does a lot in Zapier as opposed to Make. And I know you worked with Zapier. What made you move from Zapier to Make? What did you like better about Make versus Zapier?
Well, I didn't really move from Zapier to Make. We use both
Right.
because I have so many. Like I've got like I don't know over 200 Zaps that I'm not going to just move over to Make right
Right.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of basic back end function things that exist in Zaps, but Make.com is connected to some more tools and just the
More
interface.
integrations.
There's
Right.
way more integrations and the ability to like visualize what you're connecting. It's
Mhm.
much different. Like it's not like you're
It goes
clicking.
sideways as opposed to down, right?
Well, in a way, but like you're also, it's just more user friendly. It's kind of like you're the way you're used to using your phone. It's more like for me. It's
Is it Mac
more
versus PC? Is it like, different, like same outputs, different input, like different visuals, better
what you're
GUI?
allowed to do in make.com versus Zapier, from my experience, is you're allowed to customize a lot of the processes a lot better. And you're also
Right.
able to integrate a lot more specific information and details in terms of what it can do. Like a good example is our content tool for that we've built for our agents. It allows you to once you make like a video, let's say you're in your car, right? I'm talking
Mhm.
to real estate agents here. Let's say you're in your car, you're waiting for a client to show up to do a showing, right? So you would record like a quick 5 minute video of just some topic that you found interesting that you want to make a piece of content. So with make.com, I have a system where if once that video is loaded into a specific Google Drive folder, then make.com allows me to immediately take that and within 5 seconds have that become have it the video turned into an mp3 audio file, the audio file converted into a transcript, and then that transcript taken immediately and converted into a blog, and that blog has proper SEO instructions to make it SEO friendly for a specific topic with headers and proper sections, etc. And then not only that, but it also takes that blog and posts it to our website. So it immediately happens all with these integrations. I just haven't figured out how to do it that easily with Zapier. But what it also does is it creates a LinkedIn post, it creates a Facebook pages post, and puts everything out there within a matter of seconds from that quick, 5 minute video. Um, so I just haven't found a way to do that easily with Zapier.
As smoothly as and efficiently. And,
Yeah.
my guess is that you're on the forefront and the leading edge, or sometimes the bleeding edge of implementing these types of technologies. Would you say that the rest of the industry is, on par, close behind, or really lagging behind and leveraging this sort of AI automation processes to streamline their businesses?
Like, am I allowed to swear here or no? Are we? Are we?
Of fucking
Yeah.
course you are.
Okay. 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 I mean, I'm just like most of the system. Like, I don't want to talk shit about our boards and our associations, right? Because like they do what they have to do. But when you have in Ontario, in Toronto, like 90,000 realtors, you've got
Mhm.
people that are in various degrees of
Yeah.
technological capability, age, whatever. So they can't really be on the cutting edge. You can't.
Right.
And so they're not.
Yeah.
they're like quite far from it, to be honest with you. Our MLS systems looks like the original Excel from like 1992,
Yeah.
and it's just now shifting into something you would have seen 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
no, they're not caught up. They never will be caught up, but they do their best to incorporate certain things to help us feel like we're caught up. So as a professional, we can't rely on our boards to keep us at that cutting edge level. We have to do that through continuing education and will. And
Right.
that's not an expectation I have of our boards, because I understand they've got to speak to various, types of people that don't all want that.
And what's driving you to do this for your business? Is it really about the efficiency? Is it just a love for the technology? What drives you? Because, I've seen this time and time again in the accounting industry where people are like, I'm too busy to build this stuff out. And you're like, yeah, but if you build it, it'll save you time. But they can't get over that chicken and an egg concept of taking the time to work on the business so that
Yeah.
the business will work for them. So how did you overcome that hurdle, and what
Well, I mean,
inspired you
I'll tell you. First of all, I'm talking about all these things that you know I created. I personally didn't create some of these things, right? So you have to understand that like there are a million ways for you to leverage VAs, to
Mhm.
leverage like various job boards like Fiverr, whatever. Because as a business owner, you should not be spending dozens of hours or whatever it is trying to figure some of this stuff out. So
Mhm.
let's take that off the table completely. That's not the best use of your time unless you're so savvy that it's easier for you.
Right.
What I like to do is, well, first of all, we talked about having that like shiny object syndrome, right?
Yes.
So you have to be very careful in this space because it's very easy to be distracted and think you're doing something, but you're really doing nothing. Because at the
Yes.
end of the day, you're not going to get to where you want to get to, and you've spent all this money, you're not going to get there. So what I do now is I decide what I need done. And then I just do some basic research to understand what it might take to do that. And then I immediately go to like a VA. And that's a whole other discussion too about how to leverage VAs to really help you do, amazing things. I leverage our VAs. I leverage Fiverr, and I help them get me from like I went from like 0 to 30. Those
Right.
people help me go from 30 to 60. And if you really needed to go from 60 to 100, then you would level up and speak to one of these VAs or Fiverr people more. But I would recommend you identify what you need to do, have a general idea of what the process is, do some Googling and some research to find out what's available to you. Take a moment to look around those products, but don't waste your time trying to figure it out. Then go to Fiverr, go to a VA company, whatever, and see who's good with that sort of thing. Make a Loom video. Like Loom videos are amazing. I don't know if you guys know
Mhm.
what Loom is.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with AI, but like it just allows you to like record your screen while you're describing something. So whenever you figure out you want to do something, make a Loom of yourself talking about that thing you're trying to figure out. Send that video to somebody and they will do it for you within a day. I promise you, like that's the best path.
Yeah, I think that's such a great idea. Is like look at the business process, understand where the pain points are and what you're doing, and saying, okay, now let's bring on someone who is a make specialist, a Zapier specialist,
Yes.
a GPT specialist, and say, like, look, this is my process. How can you help me automate this by leveraging automation and artificial intelligence to make it better?
Yes. And
And
it'll cost you way
certainly
less. It'll cost you way less than you think as well.
yeah, yeah. And I guess the hard part is just making sure you're very clear in what that process is in that Loom video that you have, and then coming back because often, I don't know about you, but my experience is the first kick at the can usually needs a little bit of refinement, and being able to analyze and be like, okay, I like what you did here. We need to tweak this, we need to change that,
Yep.
and could you do something like this over here? And having that critical insight and that business knowledge, which obviously your Fiverr or your VA isn't going to have that business knowledge that you have. So combining the two and working together, you can drive these results, and the speed at which people can develop now is incredibly impressive, right? What you can get, and to that, I guess comes back to your point of it's not going to cost you what you think because it's so much easier for people to build stuff out.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of building out some of these things, would you mind, like you shared in the earlier call, I don't know how much of what you shared is proprietary, but it sounds like you're doing some really amazing things with what's that form tool that you
Form
were using?
form wise, yeah, man. Like
Formwise.
honestly, I'm an open book, and I don't mind sharing anything. Like one of my core values is the belief that competition is a myth. I don't
Hmm.
believe that it's a thing, and I think it's something that's just created that causes unnecessary anxiety in people. I could be side by side with a million other real estate teams, and I guarantee you, I'll win some business, and they'll win others. And there's no way that I'm going to change that. And I take a lot of comfort in that. So I don't give a
I
shit
love
about
the abundance
competition.
mindset.
Dude,
Love
you
it.
can take everything. Like, here's the thing: 99. If there's a million realtors on this chat right now, like I guarantee you, none of them are going to do the things that I'm talking about right now. Maybe one of them will, but
Yeah.
either way, I don't care. Competition is not a thing, so I'll talk about anything. So the way that I've really enjoyed using AI specifically, and this is all me, doesn't require any VA or any assistance whatsoever. It's I'm sure I don't know if you guys know the term white labeling. It's just when you take
Yeah.
like an existing product and you add your brand to it, so it looks like it's yours, right?
Yeah.
So there are, and you can't do that within ChatGPT. Like if you want to use GPTs and if you want to use OpenAI or ChatGPT, you have to use it within their world, right? You have to go to their
Hmm.
site, use it there, which is great, and we do that too. But for our team, we have a core hub that our team kind of uses for everything. Like it's a Google site that we have a custom URL that goes to it. So it's got all of our forms. You submit deals there. It's just a home hub for everything. And so
Right.
there's an AI. section on that hub. And you can embed tools that you make using a tool called FormWise. FormWise, FormWise. And it basically allows you to create a bunch of, you know, GPT type tools. For example, if you are, I'm just going to constantly talk about real estate because that's my world. So, when we are doing an offer for a client, and let's say there's an interesting, strangely worded clause that the seller wants to include in the deal that my buyer is unsure about. They're like, I don't know what this clause really means. Legal language is kind of tough to decipher sometimes. So
Right.
I just built a tool that's called the clause helper, and you just copy and paste that clause. You put it into the clause helper, and it explains it to you as if you're a 4-year-old, and it gives it to you as just in lay terms. And
Right.
that's the beauty of FormWise is you can create that form with the input, which is, hey, what does this clause mean? And it says copy and paste the clause. And then my prompt for it that I created was, I'm not going to get into exactly what the prompt is because I just don't remember it, but the gist of it is explain this to me in layman's terms using plain language, but also explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. And then that's really fun because it explains it with like fire truck analogies and like Sesame Street analogies and stuff like that. So it just adds like a layer of fun to what you're doing, but also is hugely valuable to an agent on our team because my clients are my agents, not
Yeah.
you know
Not
consumers,
not
and I got to make sure I deliver for them, right?
yeah.
Because their clients are people, are like buyers and sellers. So that's one example of how you can use FormWise. Another example of FormWise is our, the ability to navigate the Residential Tenancies Act. We represent a lot of investors. We deal with a lot of tenant landlord issues, and evictions are tough. Dealing with the whole tribunal process is very difficult. So I created this tool with FormWise that I've embedded onto our site, so it looks like it's ours. And you put in the issues. There's like 5 or 6 questions, and at the end of it, the result is you get, here's the form you have to deliver to the tenant. Here is the where you submit the form to the landlord and tenant board. Here is the timeline required. It basically spells it out for you, so there's no confusion. It's like, or it could be as simple as, hey, can I evict a tenant for whatever thing, and it will give you the actual answer. And long story short on this whole situation is why I love FormWise is because you can have it pull from multiple data sets. So FormWise can pull from, because it uses the OpenAI API. So it pulls
Mhm.
just as if you ask ChatGPT, but you can also load in a PDF of the entire Residential Tenancies Act and
Right.
whatever else. So it pulls the information from only the right places. It's not just scouring some random lawyer's website and getting me an opinionated answer or something. It's getting me the real answers from the real source.
Yeah. I
So,
love that. I've just seen so many TikToks of bad realtors giving poor advice,
oh
especially when
god,
we talk about landlord tenant rights and lots of issues, which we know what's going on with the landlord tenant board and all the issues that are going on there. So to be able to take new agents who are coming on and be able to bring them that wealth of knowledge that they instantly have access to in a way that they can easily digest and understand just enables and makes sure that your agents are actually knowledgeable, professional, and acting in the best interest of their clients, which is incredibly, incredibly powerful.
yep.
Um, but before we go on, do you mind if we circle back? We've got a couple of audience questions that are coming in. One of them specifically for you, coming back to your sort of onboarding process, which I know we stepped away from for a second. But the question was, how much human intervention do you need in that onboarding process now that you've automated? Is there still human involvement at all, or like, and how would you rate? Because if obviously you've saved a day, um, how much is it now, or is there any human involvement at all in that onboarding process?
So I guess it's important to define the onboarding process and to put it in like its appropriate buckets, right? So
Mhm.
we have the onboarding process that initially had no business involving humans, but did, and that
Yeah,
took a day. So that
yeah,
stuff no longer involves any human interaction whatsoever, to the point that the contract is customized and also sent for signature. Remember, like all this
yeah,
stuff doesn't require any human interaction whatsoever. It's all built. So the only thing right now, because we rely on APIs, right?
yeah,
The only thing right now that does not integrate at all is, sorry, it integrates but not in this specific way, is our CRM, which is called Follow Up Boss, which is a phenomenal CRM. I'm never moving off of that. It's amazing. However, you can't create a new account automatically. All we can do there is send a link. Sorry, no, we can't even do that. So that is the one thing that has to still be done manually. So that step is a notification to our admin to, hey, this person's got their email address now, because that can't happen until the email address is created.
Right.
So once the automation creates the email address in the whole Google Workplace account for them and all their Drive folders and stuff like that, then our operations person gets a notification that they're ready to be invited to the CRM. So that's the only thing. So there's no human involvement to get a person from where they are today, like you, Andrew, who has no connection to the Spring team, to being completely integrated into the Spring team, including introductions to the other team members, their and email address, like everything created. There's no human interaction whatsoever, except for inviting them to our CRM.
And I could probably help you with that with Power Automate or the RPA stuff I was telling you about before.
I'd
That
love
would
that.
be a perfect example, because if you keep, like, that's where RPA really comes in, is when you can't do things through APIs. That's where RPA shines, because you can have a robotic process that goes to that website, clicks on that link, and does the things that the human would have had to do because there is no API integration.
So that right there, if you can help me with that, would completely eliminate any human involvement from the entire onboarding process to the point where a person is ready to start transacting with our team.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to share that with you, and we can look at that, and that would mean zero human involvement, which is always a win.
But but onboarding is more than just that. Like, that's just the basic administrative stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then there's like the integrating into the culture of the team and the human
which you
aspect
are never
of it.
going to automate, right? And you wouldn't want
like
to.
that's all different. Like, that's very much human. It will always be human. But just this.
But you can't have AI go out for a drink with your coworkers.
Honestly, man, like, I'm naturally, I sound outgoing and extroverted, but naturally I'm an introvert. I would love for that to be a thing. That would be like awesome.
Yeah, maybe once they have physical robots, which and they're affordable.
That's a world I'm not sure I want to live in, but we'll talk about that later. We'll see.
It's coming though.
I know.
But we also have another question that I think we sort of touched on this as well, which is in what ways can AI enhance decision-making processes for real estate professionals, from property valuation to market analysis? And you talked about it from the analysis that it can do on landlord tenants, and to be able, is there any other ways that you can see that this might be able to help your real estate professionals as well as yourself make better decisions other than just the FormWise tool?
Oh, 100%. Like, FormWise is just like a tool that we use internally, and it's great. Like, but it's certainly not at all something that's designed to help you make, I guess it is in a way, helps give you clarity where there previously was none. But specifically addressing the decision-making process for real estate professionals and from a property valuation and market analysis perspective. So there's nothing that exists right now that can access our MLS data, because that's protected behind like various, authenticators and things like that, maybe there's a tool that we can find to get there. So it's not going to really help you go over, like, start to finish a full market analysis. But what it does for me is, because I'm, up until just before Christmas, I ran a market report weekly for almost 200 weeks in a row since the beginning of COVID. So I pulled a lot of data myself. What AI helped me do is take that data that I pulled, put it into an AI tool, like from the data interpreter before, but now it's just naturally allowed to go in, and just said, hey, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think about, the prices of the homes that sold last week? And I would get very specific, and it would just kind of help me, talk to it. Because, like, being in business for yourself is a very lonely business sometimes. So it's kind of funny how, kind of reminds me of that movie called Him. Remember, with like
yeah.
With like he fell her. He fell in love with the computer or something. I'm not falling in love with computers, but I was definitely like, using ChatGPT as like a sounding board for various ideas and thoughts that I had. But going back to specifically the market valuation or market analysis kind of stuff, I'm a huge economic nerd. Like, Benjamin Tal, CIBC's chief economist, is one of my like favorite human beings, and I've followed his work for a long time. But sometimes a lot of these reports are really long and drawn out and whatever. So I really use a lot of the data tools in ChatGPT to help me understand reports that I'm reading that might be a little bit over my head. So it just allows me to understand really complex economic scenarios and break that stuff down to help me understand how things that are happening globally could affect the Toronto real estate market. Like we operate in, and that's the thing, right? Our team, the spring team has grown into a number of markets that I don't personally live or work in every day. So we're in Victoria, British Columbia, Hamilton, Ontario, Peterborough, and we're looking at Collingwood and Calgary next. And I don't know enough about these markets to be able to speak as intelligently as I can about Toronto, but I can certainly access existing market reports for those areas. And I can put in, like, let's say I'm trying to tap into, like, Vancouver, British Columbia next, or Calgary, or whatever. I can
Hmm.
download the past 10 years of market data for a certain area, load it into an AI tool, and have it help me understand what the trends have looked like for the past little while. So it gets me really caught up in understanding where things are if I'm fresh, unfamiliar with what's going on. But in the immediate sort of term, it helps me just understand more complex reports, helps me create content from those complex reports, and just helps me communicate with clients better. But by no means are any of these tools able to accurately predict or calculate a property's value. Like a lot
Hmm.
of these, if you're in Ontario, you're probably familiar with House Sigma, which is a very popular online real estate tool that helps. There's certain property valuation estimators. Zillow in the States had a huge, called the Zestimate, which was like a huge thing for them. But they're usually way off because all they're looking at are the basic on paper, stats of a home and
Hmm.
comparing it. It's not understanding needs renovations. It's not understanding, the foundation is messed up. It's not understanding like the school district that might make
Yeah.
one street more expensive than the other. So at this point, I guess until like quantum computing becomes a thing and, you can, calculate things at an infinite level, it's going to be really hard to get to the actual valuation stuff done. But right now, that's very, very much human.
Yeah, well, that sort of ties into one of my next questions I wanted to ask you about, which is around the challenges and limitations in using AI. So obviously, it still requires a very human element to be able to interact with it. Have you run into any specific challenges that you've had to overcome while trying to implement AI into your own business?
Honestly, the main challenge is sometimes things that are supposed to fire not firing.
Right.
So, by fire I mean like engaging, like various
Yeah.
automations that should be
Automations break.
happening.
They do. Yeah.
They do, and we use automations quite heavily in Airtable, Follow Up Boss, for action plans and drip campaigns and stuff like that. Moved away from Mailchimp generally, but trying out some other things like High Level, phenomenal CRM. It's got so many crazy things in it that I'm trying to figure out right now. So if anybody listening knows all about High Level, I'd love to talk to you. And also, that's my Instagram handle. I don't know if you can see the box there where the video
At
is,
Ara
but
Mamo.
at Ara Memo. That's my Instagram handle. So like that's where I communicate the most. So if anybody wants to connect with me, follow me there, and we can talk about the stuff there. But anyway, the biggest challenge is keeping on top of stuff that's not firing.
Yeah.
And right now we're trying to avoid always being like copied on an email that's supposed to go out because I'm trying to eliminate clutter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I hate
But
that.
as we're, it's probably a good idea as you kind of dip your toe in this world to make sure there are various like quality checks in place where
Yeah.
something's happening. So, copy yourself on an email that's supposed to go out just so you know what happened for a little while. And then make sure that you have some sort of task audit, like at the end of every Friday, just make sure that things fired,
Yeah.
because that's the
Especially if they're
one
time sensitive, right?
especially if they're time sensitive, right? So like we have an email that goes out to the entire the team agents on the team at 7 p.m. every night to track various KPIs that we report on the next morning. So that's got to go out at 7 o'clock every day.
Hmm.
Um, various things like that that sometimes decide not to go. So finding ways to stay on top of things like that has been super important for us. And right now is taking up more energy than I hoped. But I've also noticed that a lot of these tools are getting a lot better every single
Yeah.
week. And that's happening much less than it did at the beginning. And I'm not going to lie, there might have been some user error involved in some of those things too. So,
Yeah.
you
Usually
know,
when things break, it's because there's something in the process that you haven't anticipated. At least I've found that for myself, is
exactly.
you do your best to think through a process and a flow. But if there's a variable you haven't considered and it encounters that variable, the flow stops because you haven't told it what to do when it
Yeah.
encounters that variable that you haven't effectively planned for. And I couldn't agree with you more. Having a process to go back in and monitor these, and yes, the tools do give alerts when things break and they send things out. But
Sometimes.
just sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, because when it breaks, like when it full on breaks, it'll alert you. But if it does something that you weren't intending it to do, but it still flows through the flow, it didn't actually technically break, but it didn't do what
Right.
you wanted to do, so it didn't give you the outcome you had hoped for.
You just
Which
reminded me of something. You reminded me, you asked me about why make.com.
yeah,
And perhaps you could do this with Zapier. I'm just not sure. So with make.com, because some of my automations and AI kind of connections are heavily customized, sometimes there's a component within that particular connection that always gives an error and stops the whole process
right,
from happening. In
yeah,
Zapier, that would mean you'd have to blow it up and just kind of find a way to make it work, and you just couldn't. With make.com, you can ignore certain errors. So you can
I like
have the
that.
system be like, hey, if that error happened, it doesn't really matter. It's not material to me. Ignore it, but carry on the process anyway. That's been huge for me.
Yeah, that's a big win because when Zapier when it breaks, and half the time their diagnostics are like useless. You're like, I can't even figure out why this
It's like you
broke.
got to be an expert coder to figure out what they're telling you, and they don't just break; the entire thing shuts off and it turns off the Zap. So
Yeah,
anyway, maybe there's a way around it. I really don't care to know about it because I figured it out with make.com, and that's another thing. Like if you're in a lane, stay in it until you've figured it out. Don't try and like there's no tool that's going to do the thing without any work. Okay? So just make
yeah,
that very clear. AI is awesome, but you have to do a lot of work to understand it, and you have to do a lot of if you want to make your life easier in the future, you got to do a lot more work right now. And I find
yeah,
a lot of people are looking for ways to do no work
nothing.
by like
Yeah.
pressing buttons. That's not a thing, so let's forget about that.
Yeah, I think that's what I say. That's a lot of the challenge that I find in my community, who tend to be laggards, accountants. They're really good at doing what they did last year, not really good about thinking about what should we do different next year. And
Yep.
that's the biggest problem that they have is they all go, yeah, this is incredibly powerful. I see what the benefits are, but I'm so inundated with what I have to do now. I don't have the time to set aside to work on my business so that my business can work for me.
Yep.
And that's a challenge that I think you know you came up with a great solution, which is just bring in the resources to help you. And there's grants now to do just that. For if you make more than $500,000, you can get the why can I not think of the name of it right now? But there's a grant you can get up to $100,000 interest free from the
Wow.
government right now, and up to $15,000 to help you build the plan, which is free grant money from the government
Right.
to build your technology plan. Now, caveat: you have to be making more than $500,000 a year to be eligible.
Right.
But if you're making more than 500,000, this is $15,000 of free money to put together a plan to implement technology into your business,
Well,
whether that's
even
AI.
even at a more like accessible level, again, I can only speak to Toronto because that's what I know deeply. You don't have to do that. You can just be any business owner that's trying to level up their digital presence in any way, shape, or
Yeah, the,
form.
the digital adoption.
It's called Digital Main Street.
Yeah,
And in Toronto, with Digital Main Street, I think there's a grant, and it's not even like an interest-free loan. It's a full-on gift of it, between $2,500 and $5,000. I can't remember
yeah.
what it is, but not everybody's in a position where they're making good revenue
It could be
like
just
that.
to do a website.
Dude,
Yeah,
if you're just starting a business, you can access this Digital Main Street money
yeah,
as well as the internship program through your local municipality. In Toronto, they've got one that offers like a subsidy to pay a summer intern. Like they'll top up their salary. Like you're paying like $4 an hour or whatever it is, and they'll top it up to 10, 12, 15, whatever it happens to be. So just
yeah.
look to your local municipality and see what programs exist to help you do what you need to do. Because I guarantee you there's something.
Yeah, Digital Main Street in Toronto and the CDAP grant, in for federally, and that's federally across the whole country.
Yeah.
Sorry, Americans, that's just for us Canadians here.
Yeah.
But going back, we had another question here from Iman, who said, if you guys had to get rid of every AI tool but one in your practice, what's the one tool you would keep?
I mean, it's if you really want me to stick to this question literally exactly, then I think you'd be a
Formwise,
fool to. I think no, I was going to say ChatGPT. What the hell?
ChatGPT.
Like
Yeah, I guess because Formwise relies on
it's
ChatGPT,
all
right?
that. Like everything that we do out there is based on either an OpenAI API
Yeah,
or perhaps like one of the other companies. But like yeah, I would have to keep that one, I guess, if I had to choose.
which is crazy, and to think that it didn't exist a year ago. Well, I mean,
Honestly,
a
it's
little over a year
wild.
ago.
But you know what?
And the way,
Like I said, that didn't exist over a year ago. But at the same time, we've been using AI tools before that. Like, who used
yes. Yeah.
Jasper? Did you use Jasper before?
Yeah, I
You
used
remember?
Jasper before, and
Yeah.
in the accounting world, we use Intuit quite a bit, and Intuit's been using artificial intelligence.
Right.
But I think also there's sometimes people use artificial intelligence and call it artificial intelligence when it's not really,
It's
when it's
not.
just basically programming.
Yes.
It's just business logic. But there are a lot of real tools out there that are actually using AI. I mean, I think like just like the app I use to edit videos on my phone, which is a GoPro app, uses AI to like pick the right frames and do all that stuff for me automatically. Talked about Grammarly. Like there's so many tools and technology that we use
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis where we're using artificial intelligence. And it's just, I guess what was so revolutionary about Chat GPT is they introduced it to us in a way that allowed us to have simple, basic conversations and get back communication that made sense to us and effectively passed the quote unquote Turing test, where we felt like was an authentic human interaction with it
Yeah.
rather than it was some specific programming that was done in the back or some unauthentic robot that we couldn't
Yeah.
interact with in a meaningful way.
You guys remember I'm not going to pose this as a question because it's totally out of left field and there's nobody's going to answer it. But like, over the past decade, remember on Facebook, the popular quizzes, facial recognition kind of things. What do you think that was doing for a whole decade?
Well, I
Those
also
things,
think it was being used by hackers to social engineer you. So
honestly,
don't
totally,
overcommit those surveys.
that's part of it, absolutely. But all of those things were, part of training all of these tools that exist today to learn
Yeah,
about, facial recognition, to learn about people's habits, to learn about what,
yeah,
people are wanting to know. And it was gaining inputs from all these people to kind of populate these kinds of tools. You don't
yeah.
see those anymore, do you? I mean,
Nope.
I certainly don't see
Because
them
they've got the
anymore.
data now. They don't need it, right?
Right.
Uh,
So, but
and
what I
also,
was going to say about sorry, I keep cutting you off, man. I just can't
no,
stop
no, no.
talking
Go
without
ahead.
jumping
It's
the
that
thing.
1 second. It's that millisecond delay that gets you every time, right?
Right? But you mentioned something about video editing, and that's, I think, probably the first place I really dove deep into AI before, like, I got into all this stuff we talked about. And there's probably a million different ones right now, but there's one, if you guys want to write it down or remember it. It's called video.ai, but it's spelt differently. So it's VIDYO.ai. So video, like video.ai.
Yeah,
Um,
VidIO. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, sorry, vid. No, it's not I. It's Y.
yeah,
It's with a Y. Anyway, so with that, like, let's say right now I was, you gave me the recording of this uh,
sure.
live podcast show, or whatever you want to call it. Um, I would take however large this file was, however many gigabytes it was, I would upload it into video.ai. You can also link a YouTube link to it.
Hmm.
And then it would then, within about 5 minutes, deliver fully edited, fully captioned reels
Yeah,
that I can, with the captions, and it did a really great job of like picking the right points to talk about. Like, that's the wildest part for me. I didn't prompt it in any way. So this is that one tool that does the thing that requires no work.
yeah,
So then, depending on how long it was, it gave me like anywhere from 5 to 15 usable reels
yeah.
like that.
And we're using a similar product called Opus, which Kasim had to throw up here because we love it. It's amazing because I remember we used to struggle with this. We'd have, and when you have an hour long conversation, there's so many like little snippets that you can use for reels and shorts,
Oh
which is
yeah,
the thing that all the social media are pushing right now, right? And Opus is unbelievable the way it will go through and just naturally pick out the
yeah,
keywords. And one of the things we've discovered is like if you actually use a couple of like the trending sort of buzzy keywords, it'll look for those and pull them out, and it does an amazing job of pulling out really good little snippets. And I can tell you, like, we have a guy on our team, Jose, who's a video editor and who used to try and do this for us, and basically we just couldn't keep up. It was too much work for him to go through and manually edit, can look for the things. We had way too many other projects for him to work on that it just basically never ever happened. And now with Opus, we're able to push out like 4 to 5 clips out of this show, which we will do, will get pushed out on our social media now, and that's all done, like you said, by pushing a magic button,
Yeah.
which is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and you can edit it if you want too. That's the best
Yes,
part. Like
yeah,
if you want to
you don't
dig in
have
there,
to
move the
use their
video
default.
around, yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it even
So
does like Opus does automatic B rolls and all sorts of like really
yeah,
cool things. But I guess one of the things, we should maybe have a touch on is the sort of darker side. If Rachel was here to play our devil's advocate, she'd want us to have a conversation around, data and privacy concerns. How do you feel? Are you worried about AI as being either a problem for data and privacy for the data that you're putting it in, or a risk for you and your business in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, you're probably talking to the wrong guy about privacy and stuff like that because I couldn't care less about that being a thing. Like, honestly, man, I'm trying to live as like zen a life as possible and not worry about things I can't control.
Right.
And like, I know the world is moving in a certain direction, and I know that there are some horrible humans on this planet that are going to do horrible things with it.
Yeah.
And but that's not new. That's always been a thing, and it's
Yeah.
always going to be a thing. So I really think that it's really important to educate people, especially our parents and people that are more vulnerable to being taken advantage of by all of these things, to
Yes.
really help them understand like what to look out for to not be taken advantage of. And I think that's really where the effort needs to go, not the
Yeah.
prevention. It's just like with bullying. Like, you're never going to prevent bullying. So I don't understand why you would spend an ounce of energy trying to say stop bullying when there's always going to be piece of shit human beings that are going to be bullies. But I think all the energy needs to go into dealing with those things in a much better way, just like with you knowing what kind of information what is the result of me putting this information out there. It's just more of like understanding what it could mean and
Yeah.
either being okay with it or not being okay with it. But if I were to be worried about privacy at a high level, if I were to be worried about all the dubious things people could do, that might paralyze me into not really moving my life forward.
Yeah.
So I really don't want to spend too much time in that space at all because it's unproductive. It doesn't get me anywhere, and I can't do anything about it. I can only control what I input, and I'm comfortable with putting more of me out there, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
I know that some people aren't, and that's cool, and I would never force anybody to
Each
do
their own,
anything.
right?
Yeah, to each their own. But like, I know that maybe sound like a cop out answer, but really, I really believe that, and I feel like you can be worried about privacy, but then what can we do about it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I think that that's the key is like, what can you do about it? Because did you hear about the recent $25 million, wasn't a hack, it was a social engineering thing. So what they did is, it was in Asia somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. I think it was China or Japan. And I think it was actually some sort of real estate fund actually, and they got the guy to release $25 million. And you know how they did it?
What?
They did a fake Zoom, and they had so you've heard of HeyGen. You know what HeyGen is,
Yeah,
where
of
it can
course.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
clone, you can
yeah,
clone a person and you can clone their
yeah.
voice. So it had his entire board in the Zoom meeting, except for none of them were real. So
Oh
he'd
my
apparently
god.
got a phishing email. He didn't really think that he thought he was suspicious of it, so he didn't act on it. And then he gets this board meeting with all the entire board basically saying, "Yeah, go ahead, do it." So he does it because, like, how would you know otherwise, right? Like your
Wow.
entire board. So to your point, I don't think you need to dwell on it or restrict yourself from sharing information, but it is key to understand what the capabilities are out there and to educate your team on, hey, what are the processes? By the way, I will never ask you to send me a gift card. I will never
Yes.
ask you to release cash. And if I do, here's the secret code word within our organization. This is our safe word within our organization.
Yeah, that's pretty intense actually. Like, that's pretty damn scary. And even a year and a half ago, I lost a tremendous amount of money with my MetaMask crypto account based on a similar kind of scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm very savvy, right? And I got taken, and I can see how other people will too. And I think there will be a period of time where, unfortunately, a lot of us will be more vulnerable as we get used to what these things look like. But the one piece of advice I might have is, if you get an email from like a coworker or a boss or a whatever, somebody in your work world or anywhere asking you to click a link or doing something, they're getting very good at not necessarily spoofing email addresses, but just changing a couple letters around so it looks like it's coming from Ara
Mhm.
at thespringteam.ca, but it's coming from Ara at thesprongteam.ca or
Yeah,
something, or like a variation that you don't notice. So I'd highly recommend that you deeply look at the email address that it's coming from. But
yeah,
also, if you copy the link without clicking on it, but copy it and paste it into a note app to see
yeah,
what the link actually is, because it might say, https blah 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 zoom dot whatever, but it really could be a whole different URL.
yeah.
So that's
If
the
you're
kind
on
of
your
stuff that
mobile,
you can
if
do.
you hold down the link before you click it, it'll show you what the URL is going to. Because I know on your phone you can right click to see, because they can make like the text can be different from what the URL is.
That's what I'm
Right?
saying. Yeah, it, it
And
could
so
it can look
on,
like a URL, but it won't even be a URL. It'll just be like
yeah,
the text they overlaid and hyperlinked it.
exactly. But if you hold like on your mobile, because you can right click on like a desktop, but on your mobile, if you hold it, you'll be able to see where the URL goes to without actually going to the URL.
Good
So that's a
call. Okay.
little tip out there, because yeah, it's, and the thing is, we also have to work not only in educating our clients about the potential risks or concerns, but our family members. Like you said, is like my dad unfortunately was victimized by someone recently who basically stole his entire identity. We're like, Dad, no one from CRA is going to call you asking you for your social insurance number. No one from the bank is going to call you asking for your PIN. Like,
Yeah.
never ever give this stuff out. And he's
Yeah.
like, but it sounded so legit, and they said they were from the bank, and they had this information about me. I'm like, unfortunately, the reality is like the what AI is empowering is businesses and threat actors out there as well. And I don't think it should stop you from leveraging AI. And I don't think it should make you fearful to go out into the world. But I do think you do have to you have to hold a minute. You have to understand what their capabilities are to understand what you need to do to protect yourself against those risks. But
Yeah.
I won't belabor it, because I don't want to dwell on the negative either. Um, I want to focus back on sort of the future and the positive sides of it. So I guess from your perspective, where do you see the future going? And I know no one has a crystal ball, and I wouldn't have predicted what ChatGPT or AI would have given us, even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But what is your crystal ball for the future of AI in the real estate profession?
That's a like a pretty deep question, I guess. But honestly, I think it's affected real estate, and I say affected not in a negative way. Like it's influenced real estate in a pretty big way already. Um, I think the biggest change I think is going to be not necessarily naturally these technologies are going to evolve and improve, and I don't really know in what way, but I feel like the biggest shift or change is going to be mass adoption across all brokerage models, with this kind of thing to kind of,
Right.
or at least the people that stick around, like the real players. And there's going to be a much more level playing field, and the bar will be raised in terms of, you know, uh, marketing and things like that. So I think whatever the next generation of all this stuff is, because right now it's very obvious what is a AI generated piece of marketing content.
Yeah.
Like it's very obvious if somebody hasn't touched it after it was created,
Yeah.
unless your like custom instructions are so strong that it delivers like truly your brand voice. And I'm sure some people can still do that. But I think the real evolution is going to be creating even higher quality content from one basic input. But
Yeah.
then again, like you're going to have everybody creating that same level of high level content. So
Yeah.
is there going
It's
to
a race
be
to the gray, as I call it. It's all going to be the same.
right? So then, but it's always kind of been that, right? So like back in the day, if you were doing video, you were crushing the tech game, right? Because like
Yeah.
you held a phone up in front of your face and shot a video. That was the extent of like you being cutting edge, was that.
Yeah.
Now everybody's doing that. So then it was like, okay, well, you've got a podcast or something, or you've got like a YouTube show or whatever. You're crushing it. You're getting attention. Now everybody has a podcast and like a YouTube show or something.
Yeah.
So, but like, is there going to be some sort of AI intervention there that really helps you differentiate the content that comes out? Or is that the one piece of human that still needs to be there to make it different? Are we going to go back to that more like raw, real time, boots on the ground kind of content in real estate, where that's now paid more attention to than some sort of like you know reel that has like AI generated B-roll built into it, or like some emoji that pops up the caption or something like that. Like everybody can do that now.
Yeah.
So I hate, like, I don't want to be that, like, old man yells at cloud and technology is not going to replace the human, because I
But
really think that technology
it's
will.
not. And I don't know if you know who Neil Patel is,
I do, yeah.
but he's,
Know him
yeah.
well.
So Neil actually did a release right now, or earlier in the year, at the beginning of the year, about what is actually working as far as search engine optimization. And what he said is actually shorter content and human written content is what's doing better from a search engine
Mm,
optimization. Because like you have to keep in mind that the robots, if you think we can spot AI, the robots can definitively spot AI. We know it was a Canadian who first developed the first tool to actually check if artificial
yeah,
intelligence had been used in for effectively plagiarism, right? So the robots can spot AI stuff, and the search engine algorithms are not going to prioritize that the way they're going to prioritize human. And I think when we talked about before we came on live, you were talking about, I'm like, oh, are you using it because the low hanging fruit is in marketing? You're like, no, I'm not using it in marketing. I'm using it for like our business processes, because it's not really helping there. It can help you get volume, but it's not helping you actually get the attention
yeah,
and or the interaction that you actually seek from social. And I think you probably are, like, for example, like in using the tools to snap the videos, which is out of human generated. Like this is a human conversation, and you can then use AI to pull stuff
yeah.
out of
I
it.
use it. I use it to support, like, the systems and the execution of certain things, but I
Yeah,
don't use it as like an A to Z, like create, execute, engage, like all that stuff. But you
yeah,
said something very interesting. And I know we're kind of running out of time, but like I think that the whole discussion around SEO will probably be now that I kind of think about it more, like SEO becomes less relevant in the traditional way, where it's not about gaming it with keywords and backlinks and like
yeah,
that kind of stuff. I really, really think, like, personally, I use ChatGPT as my search engine sometimes,
yeah,
because, like, if you're Googling something, how many sponsored posts do you have to filter through before you get to the real answer? And then when you do click on that link, is it a real answer? Or is it some website with a bunch of ads and videos and stuff like
yeah,
that? So I really feel like the search experience has been kind of ruined by Google and their ad machine for a long time. So I think groups like, maybe Bing will start to really take more market share. And I really think that people will start using these AI tools as their search engines versus going to Google or whatever. Or these AI tools will be built into those existing tools that already have the attention. So I don't think the focus on SEO is important anymore. I think the importance on providing high value content is more important, which has always been. But
yeah,
people that provided high value content that had no clue how to do SEO weren't getting the attention before. But I
yeah.
think now people that know how to do high value content don't need to give a shit about SEO, and they'll get the attention because these AI tools will recognize that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, we have already seen people moving to the Bing search, and which is the Chat GPT tool, right? And so we had a client, and this goes back, geez, almost close to a year now. It was probably April last year. So I had a client reach out to me through LinkedIn, or client now, prospect at the time, reached out to me and said, "Hey," and it was this thing, and I was like, I could tell it was ChatGPT generated. So I actually responded, "Yeah, happy to connect. By the way, I love that you're using ChatGPT because it was a new thing." I'd be like,
Yeah,
what, and I was asking about that. He's like, actually, I didn't use ChatGPT. I used Bing, and then Bing found you on LinkedIn in your LinkedIn profile, and then generated an email for me to send to you through LinkedIn. And
yeah,
that's when I realized it's, the search engine optimization game is a short-term play, which you still need to play, by the way, because in
yep,
the short term, you've got a lot of people still just using traditional search. But as more
100%.
people use OpenAI, it's about your entire social presence, not just your search engine optimization. Because what he came to me by was via LinkedIn, not our website, which to me was
Yeah.
really interesting.
And that makes complete sense. But it also, remember, like, you're never going to be able to speak to everybody all the time. And that should be
No,
the number one thing, is like you have to, number one, before you even get into business. I think somebody here asked on the side, what's your advice to anyone who is just starting to integrate AI into their business? I
yeah,
wouldn't integrate anything into your business until you know who you're talking to.
yeah.
So, like, forget about spending any money on anything. Like, wake up, if you were to wake up in the morning tomorrow, whatever your business is, and you knew that you were going to see these five specific people and do business with those people, who are those people? Are they your friends? Like, who do you love to hang out? Who is your ideal, who's your
Who's your
person?
niche? Who's your market?
Who's
Yeah,
your person, right? And then, so once you figure out who those people are, talk to them about what their struggles are, what their needs are, kind of build that client avatar in your head, right? Like, and then everything you do going forward speaks to those 5 people and only those 5 people. That's your
Yeah.
niche. So if those people are early adopters of technology, like our clients on at the Spring team, they're usually early adopters of technology. They're between the ages of like 35 and 55. And if they're older, they're young at heart. They probably have an electric car or they want one. Like they love the idea of shopping local, but they pretty much buy everything on Amazon anyway. And they love the whole independent coffee shop vibe. Like that's who our client is. And they're usually early adopters of technology. So they're the ones that are finding us in a way like you just described your client would, right?
Yeah.
But then if I had a major, if our clients were people that were downsizing, like, they're retired, they're, aged, whatever, and they're selling their local house and moving into a condo to kind of live out their retirement years, I'm going to treat them differently. I'm going to ask AI different questions to help me with that kind of person. So don't spend any money, don't do anything until you figure out who you're
Who
talking
your
to.
persona is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Start with the avatar. It's great advice, and I know we could talk for hours about this topic, but we are at time. So I just want to again say thank you for joining us, and looking forward to talking more over the course of the years and sharing more information about how you can leverage AI to help your business. So, and we'll hang after, and I can talk to you more about Power Automate and how you can get that one last step that
That
requires
one step.
eliminated. So thanks
Love it.
again. And we'll see you guys back next week. We got another amazing guest on the show. So check us out. We'll be back again with another great episode in a week. Bye for now.